Hey everyone, Token Dave over here, dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by. Now, welcome to another edition of the Token 10, my top 10 list for a particular subject matter, and this is part 2 of my 10 favorite albums of the 90s. And I realized I didn't set the parameters in my part 1 video, so let me do this right here and right now. Number 1, I can only mention a band, group, or artist, only one album from them in this time period. To be frank, I would have had probably 2 artists appear multiple times and it would have taken up this list. So that's what I had to do. Alright, number 1. Number 2, these artists had to have come out between 1990 and 1999. Okay? Number 3, these are judged by the album as whole, not the singles. I'll go into my favorite songs or singles from the 90s sometime in the future, as well as favorite songs from albums that were not played on the radios as well too. Alright? So, get all that out of the way. Oh, and one other thing. These are just my personal opinions, right? This is my personal bias. Everyone has their own opinions on this. This is not the best, of the 90s. This is just my opinions. Alright? Need to let that out there. Okay. So, let's go into number 5. Pearl Jam's 10. This was a difficult choice because I really love verses. Verse and 10 are just awesome albums, right? If you're a fan of the grunge period, as much as I love 10, I really suggest y'all pick up verses, because verses is awesome, is amazeballs. The reason that 10 etched out verses is for personal reasons. 10 actually had a few songs that I personally related to. Jeremy, one of the most controversial songs at that time. I actually knew someone, while they didn't commit suicide, I did know someone else that committed suicide, and I unfortunately witnessed that, and it was one of my first dealings with the police, and with a therapy and everything, and it was very tragic. But I also knew someone else that was bullied a lot and made fun of a lot, and that person was a friend of mine at that time period, and they actually ended up murdering somebody else, which was the first time something like that happened to me at a very young age. I was at that time, I was used to seeing some of my friends, mind you, I was in junior high school at that time, and I was used to seeing them getting killed and murdered by random street people and everything. I was not used to people I knew murdering another person that I knew, and it wasn't that they did them wrong or I had to fight or anything. So, Jeremy was enough. But then I also had the song Black, which kind of had me, the last verse, I know someday you'll have a beautiful life. I know you'll be the sun in someone else's sky. That pretty much relates to my first love, whom luckily I found her 2 years ago, and she doesn't remember much of our relationship, which kind of forged some of the things I look for in another female and how I view relationships and the LGBT community. But neither aside, that's for another day. And we also had Why Go Home, basically talking about someone that's, in a treatment home, they want her to be weak, and they have to pretend, something that I really, really did for a long time period. But anyway, I've gone on about 10 much longer. Besides those personal relations and relations and relating to those songs, which is another thing that I love Pro Jam. Pro Jam did a lot of songs that I was able to relate to. One of the reasons why I like Versus so much as well too. But in the end, Pearl Jam also is known to continue the grunge phase when they had, Even Flow, Oceans, Jeremy, and, Still Alive. So, yeah. Oh my God, I only went on to so long with 10. Let's go to number 4. The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest. It's the Tribe Called Quest. One of my top 3 rap groups of all time. And it sucks that we lost Phife Dawg 2 years ago. Cause damn, Tribe took rap and hip hop to another level. We were used to hip hop, and rap being rhythm and poetry, but they exemplified that. Plus, they mixed a lot of jazz themes. You felt like, you were listening to spoken poetry and jazz at the same times with A Tribe Called Quest. And Low End Theory was, really propelled them. This was the album that gave us Scenario. This was the album that gave us Bugging Out and We Got the Jazz. While We Got the Jazz was fused with Bugging Out in the videos, on the album, We Had the Jazz, and damn, Low End Theory was just and not for anything, this was the first time no, it wasn't the first time I committed a juvenile delinquent crime, but I committed a juvenile delinquent crime to get Low End Theory, and this was like, a soundtrack. This is something that I consider like not just a soundtrack, but like a way of life, something that gave me, a more positive vibe of rap and hip hop, and always put me in a great mood. So yeah, Low End Theory, number 4. And I so forgot to say that number 4 and number 3 always go back and forth a lot of times, But number 3 is Rayalite by Madonna. Now, I have to confess that I enjoyed Low End Theory as an album more than Rayalite. So why is Rayalite number 3? One word, one name, Madonna. Everyone that personally knows me from my teens, and some of y'all that know me in my early 20s, know that I have an eternal and undying love for Madonna. Madonna is my first love, okay? When I was collecting CDs, and I might end up collecting CDs again, I actually made sure that I had all of Madonna's albums. And I think I have to look into my crates in the storage facility, but I think I still have all of her albums all the way up until Confessions of the Dance Floor. But suffice it to say, Madonna had to have been in my top 3. And this was the first album that I actually got from Madonna within a 4-year gap, because from 1994, we didn't hear from Madonna all the way up until 1998. And this was like, I was well into my late teens at that time, and I was a junior in high school, and thank God, And this was a little different for Madonna. While this continued Madonna having a more mature sound and her album not being as vibrant and boastful and everything and loud, this was the first real dark turn for Madonna. Dark turn in effect that basically this was very, very calm, more introspective, more spiritual, and while at the same time having more of an electronica sound. And Frozen was the first song that got released, and then I remember buying the album day one when it came out, and for some reason I was really, really drawn to Shanti Shanti. You know, I was drawn to that a lot. And as well as Nothing Really Matters, you know, as well as Little Star. I felt so, Little Star reminded me of, like, you know, my little sister at the time so much. But yeah, so basically, Rayalite, number 3. Love Madonna. Madonna's my eternal love. Always will be, always has been. I have a separate story about that. If you want to hear it, drop me a comment below. But Rayalite, number 3. Number 2. Number 2 and number 1 were very difficult for me. Very difficult. But number 2 is Nevermind by Nirvana. The album that gave us Teen Spirit. The album that made Kurt Cobain the legend that he is. Other than the singles that were released, we had It Smells Like Teen Spirit. Enough to say about that. We also had Come As You Are, and we also had Lithium, you know. But people forget In Bloom, which was another single of theirs. But those were not it. You know, Territorial Pissings, I loved that song. And then, you know, we also had I'm on a Plane, which when I finally had to buy the CD, because I had the cassette at the time, I made a mixtape, and Something's Not the Same, or Something's Never Changed was the last song. I had to I usually reversed that and had On a Plane as the last one, because On a Plane, I felt that was the way the album should have ended, and I keep listening to that song over and over. And yeah, Nirvana, Nevermind, it just had to be in the top 2. And it was close to being the top 1. Number 1. It was like this close to being number 1. But my number 1 favorite album of the 1990s is Enter the 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang! Again, like Tribe, one of my top 3 rap groups of all time. And when this album came out, all hell broke loose for me when it came to rap and hip hop, because, you know, this was right before the East Coast West Coast beef happened, and this album combined everything that I loved: rap, martial arts, and eccentric personalities. You know, come on, we had Cream on this album. We had Method Man, Tech Your Neck. But here's the thing, the opening song, Bring the Ruckus. This was a song that I always felt had to have been in an action movie. Thank God the MCU and in the Netflix shows, they had Bring the Ruckus, thanks to Luke Cage and everything. You know, which, by the way, was it Luke Cage or was it Defenders? I'll find out when I rewatch the shows in a couple of days. But, oh God, you know, oh, and the mystery of chess boxing. Damn! So, yeah, going on huge tangents, sorry, but Enter the 36 Chamber, my favorite rap album, not only my favorite rap album, but my favorite album of the 1990s, you know. So, that's my higher portion, and that's my top 10 albums of the 1990s. Agree? Disagree? Give me your list and all. You know, drop me a comment below, give me a like, follow me on Facebook at Token Dave or on Twitter Token Dave 80. Subscribe, ring that bell so you know when new video loads. But until then, this has been Token Dave, Dorky Token Black Guy who's just trying to get by. Catch all of y'all later.